everyone's making a hell for themselves. Their personal fear or worry is now the focus. Well, you can see it especially with like COVID, and whether that's people who are scared of COVID or people scared of the vaccine. It's like Twilight for adults, for like men, and the women. It's like, I'm team Edward. No, I'm team Jacob. And it's like, now for the next year and a half, I'm going to be researching my team, and I'm going to be attacking and threatening and trying to ruin the life and harassing anybody else in the other team. And it's literally like Twilight for society.
All right, everybody, what's going on? This is the Other Life Podcast. I am Justin Murphy. This week, I'm speaking with Paul Towne. So some of you might know Paul from Twitter or Instagram, but what a lot of people might not know is that he's an author of many books, actually. And on the internet, there are a lot of underground indie authors, and you're never really sure who's worth, looking into, or let alone buying their books or checking them out. And I actually have to say, I think Paul Towne's books are really quite underrated. I think he's a pretty serious author. He's young and he's only just starting, but he's published more than 3 400-page nonfiction books that compile kind of his observations and ideas and experiences. And I kind of think of it as stream of consciousness nonfiction in a way. He kind of cycles through different characters in a way, but it's authentic also. And there are some real nuggets of insight and wisdom, and it's funny. I'm quite interested in Paul as an author since I recently got some of his books and looked into them. And yeah, some internet writers are overrated, like Paul Scalise, who's kind of just a empty scammer and grifter. But then there are people who actually are really writing interesting works of nonfiction and doing so creatively and with a lot of gusto. And Paul Towne is one of the latter. So this is really interesting to get to know him better, to learn his story. He's had really interesting experiences. He had a psychotic episode where let's just say a barn was burned down, and he tells that story, and he was spending time in jail and psych wards, and he's a prolific author, basically. So I wanted to meet him and learn more about his work and learn more about his life and what he's all about. So I think you'll find this quite interesting. I certainly did. And that's all for now. If you want to check out any of his works, I put some links in the show notes. Do go ahead and check it out. And like I said, I can genuinely recommend it. I bought It Is the Secret, and I spent last night reading it with a cocktail, and I had a lot of fun. I think he's a really interesting dude, and I'm going to be paying close attention to his career moving forward. So, all right, that's all for now. Let me get out of the way, and we'll get on to the show. All right, Paul, how you doing, man?
I'm doing good. How are you doing?
I'm good, man. I can't complain. I've been looking forward to talking with you. We've been kind of in overlapping internet circles for a while. For people who don't know about you, I would say you're a writer and a kind of internet personality. People in my audience might know you somewhat from either Instagram or Twitter, but I'm interested in you primarily because you're also a writer of books. I have one of your books here. It Is the Secret, which I actually had a lot of fun reading last night. And you've actually written a whole bunch of other books, and this is not a small book. It's like a serious book. It's a 400-page book, and it's real writing, really interesting observations. And I don't think that many people necessarily know about your books or know that you're a pretty serious writer. Like you have a clear project and a very interesting angle and an interesting story. So yeah, that's why I wanted to bring you on here to talk a little bit about your work, learn a little bit more about you and your life, and just kind of share with my audience your perspective and your projects. So thanks for coming on. I appreciate you being here.
Yeah, thank you for the introduction. It's very, very flattering.
Yeah, so I want to talk about your writing style and your ideas, which are, as I was telling you before we started recording, I'm pretty impressed, honestly, and I'll tell the audience why. But let's start with giving my audience a little bit of background on you. Like, give us a little origin story. Like, what's your background, and how did you first get into writing on the internet?
Yeah, I'm an insane person. No, I've always done like creative stuff, whether that's like art or programming. I used to do, when I was in like high school, I used to do like Flash games and that sort of thing. But I've always enjoyed writing, just because it's a good way to express myself, and I found it's easier to write out my opinions than especially growing up when I was younger, discussing them with people, because most people aren't very good at talking or listening and that sort of thing. So my writing is basically it's just a way for me to express myself, really. It's not like any I never like decided as a kid I was like, oh, I'm gonna be a writer. It was more like oh, like I have nothing to do, so I'm gonna do some writing now.
And how old are you now?
I am 26. I'll be 27 soon.
Right. Okay. So not a lot of 26-year-olds have written a 400-page book of nonfiction. And so did you start writing, like when did you actually start putting pen to paper? Were you very young? You must have some practice with this.
Yeah, I think I was like homeschooled, so like my mom taught me writing or whatever. But she growing up, she did like she went to like Catholic school, so she had the Catholic nuns giving her the, you know, if you're familiar with that, they're very, very strict with writing and that sort of stuff. So growing up, I got a pretty strict, which you can kind of tell in my writing that it's like I pull back at certain points, but it's not in the same. It's not like strict grammatically. It's more strict in the sense of it's not excessive in, you know, word verbiage. But yeah, no. So for writing, I think I went to like community college, and that was when I really started enjoying writing because it was a lot less strict. It was, wow, you know how to like write a complete sentence. You're like at the top of the class now. So then I was like, oh, okay, I can actually write. Like it's actually fun because I'm not like getting the Catholic nun hand me down experience of writing. But yeah, ever since out of high school, I've been writing on and off.
Okay, out of high school. And
Yeah.
when did you first start building an audience on the internet? And tell us that story, like how you first started getting a little cult following on the internet.
Yeah, I think it had to be back before the election. It was probably about like 2015 or so. Basically, I came over from 4chan. Actually, I wasn't a big 4chan user, but I would lurk. Actually, V, which is the video game board, which is funny because I'm not like a big video game person. I remember I was lurking.
You make fun of gamers a lot in your book.
Yeah. I think it's unhealthy. But the thing is, I think it's unhealthy because I've done it. It's not like I'm speaking, you know.
Yeah.
Just from a mountaintop or whatever. But yeah, no, I came over from. I was actually, which is funny, but during the Gamergate thing, I saw a bunch of funny stuff and I said, oh, I need to make a Twitter account because this is so funny. And so I came on to Twitter, and that's when I started. I just got in touch with a bunch of different people, and from there, I kind of built an audience organically.
And were you also building an audience on Instagram, or did that come later, or what?
That came later. That's like a later thing. I decided, it's better to branch out, and especially, you know, after I had an episode and people were posting my personal information, I figured it's better to be the one posting my own personal information. And,
okay, so
coming off like a normal person.
So most of your followers and fans have come through Twitter, would you say?
Yeah.
Okay, right. And what kinds of stuff were you writing on Twitter as opposed to the book? Like, what's your Twitter?
A lot of Twitter was mostly like you know, Twitter, like the way to get an audience is like trolling and being offensive and being mean to people and being a horrible, like sociopathic, like insane person. So basically, yeah, like Twitter, I'm exaggerating a little bit, but it's Twitter is more like the combative, like you're getting into arguments with people and you're trolling people and you're making jokes, you know, and that sort of thing. So basically during the election season, it was a bunch of journalists and just general commentary and that sort of stuff. I would joke around and talk about stuff and give my perspective on stuff, and to be like 100% honest, like my perspective has changed over the years. It's been like half a decade since the election, which is funny. But yeah, so my perspective on stuff has definitely adjusted over time as I've gotten older and that sort of stuff. But yeah, no, the way I built my audience was basically just saying what I thought and being honest about it, and you know, being funny. Like you read my book, is like a lot of it is satire and stuff.
Right. I would say that your style, correct me if I'm wrong, but the way I interpret your internet persona and your writing style is it's basically kind of like stream of consciousness, but for nonfiction in a way. It's like you're kind of just saying whatever you think or feel, but you also let yourself cycle in and out of different personalities in a way. Like you have different like sub personalities. So you'll like start talking in the first person about some experience you've had, but it's clearly like not you. It's like some character you're playing, but you're not like labeling the different characters. You just go in and out of them. So is that fair? Is that a fair like summary in a way?
Yeah, the way I kind of express myself and write is a lot of it is pretty much, it's a mixture between stuff I do think and stuff I don't think, and I try to blur the lines because I want the person reading to be active reading. I want them to be like, reading it and being like, oh, do I agree with this? Or is he serious? Is he not serious? Is he being honest? Is he just saying the exact opposite of what he thinks right now? And that way, when they're reading, they don't really shut off their brain. It's like an active participant in the reading process.
Right. So you have some bits in this book. It is the secret about social media and like getting a following and building an audience, which I thought was kind of interesting to see. There is some actually kind of constructive advice in there. And one of the things you say at some point is something to the effect that on the internet, you can kind of say anything you want if you just say it over and over. If you just say it over and over again and you don't care and you just like keep posting, that you can build a cult following like pretty easily. Can you expand on that idea?
Yeah, well, it's like, that's the thing. It's like with the internet and that sort of thing, it's no matter what you think, and no matter like whether you're like a freak or a normal person or like whatever niche you're into or hobby you're into, there's like a critical mass of people across the world who are also into that. And really, it doesn't matter what you're saying, whether you're left wing, right wing, apolitical, libertarian, anarchist, blah blah blah, communist, or anything. As long as you're like loud and vivid enough, whether it's not even that, it might not be politics. It might be like, oh, I'm interested in collecting trains. I'm interested in collecting playing cards or painting or writing or developing and that sort of thing. It doesn't matter what it is, as long as you're vivid enough and you send out that signal over and over and over again, you're going to find people who are drawn to that. And it's kind of like, it's like, I don't know if you've seen that movie I Am Legend, where he it's like Will Smith, I think it was Will Smith, and he's like a survivor in like a zombie movie. And it's not a movie, well, in the movie, it's a movie, but he's a survivor in like a zombie apocalypse, and he goes out like to like this shipyard every day or something to like basically just send out a signal of like, oh, I'm alive and blah blah blah. And really, you can do that with if you do that every day and you do that over and over again with anything, any topic or hobby or thing that you're genuinely interested in, you're eventually going to send out a signal, and it's going to be found by somebody, and they're going to know other people who are into the same thing, and you'll get a following as long as you're very vivid. I think vivid is the best word for it.
Okay. And you also talk in your book about getting a lot of chicks through the internet. So tell us more about that. Like, how many chicks have you gotten through the internet?
Oh, too many.
How many?
No, it's kind of tongue in cheek, because to be honest, I'm very, I'm a gay man. No, that's never been a motivation, but it's been, I think it's because it's not my motivation. I've had a lot of opportunities.
So how many chicks have you gotten through the internet?
0. I'm a virgin.
I'm just curious. Give us a range. Give us a ballpark.
Oh, well, to be honest, I am a virgin. I'm
really
saving myself for marriage.
Really?
Not for marriage, but it's, once again, it's not
That's good. You're a good Christian.
Yeah.
Are you Christian?
Like
Are you Christian?
I was raised Christian, and I call myself like non-denominational Christian, but that's more because I don't want to mess it. Like, for me, I'm a big fan of Christians, and I'm people who follow Christianity and are sincere about it. Like, I'm a very big fan because that's how I was raised. But like the leadership of different denominations and that sort of stuff, I'm not a big fan of.
Well, you're a good Christian if you're saving yourself for marriage. Very good. So, okay. Interesting. And so tell us about the story behind, well, actually, let's start with some background. You alluded already in this conversation to having an episode. I believe, you recently had a major.
My whole life's been like one big episode.
Okay. Your whole life has been an episode, but I think recently you had a particularly acute episode, which I think led you to
psychotic episode. Yeah.
I think you had a psychotic break, and then you did some things that landed you in the criminal justice system. Can you just kind of break down what happened exactly?
Yeah. That's actually a tell. If somebody drinks when you're asking them a question and they start drinking something, that's like they're super nervous. But I was actually gonna do that before. No, I back in 2018 was the actual occurrence, but 2017 it was like it was like a year of lead up. I had a psychotic break in early 2018, and an abandoned barn got burnt down. But yeah, no, it was basically I had like a schizophrenic episode that lasted. It started very slowly. It was like a slow burn. And because I wasn't familiar with schizophrenia or anything like that, or psychosis at all, I didn't really know I was having it. So I was just going crazier and crazier. And in my head, I'm like, everyone else is getting crazier and crazier. So, yeah, basically I ended up getting arrested. I got charged and pled down to something. But basically I'm on probation right now. And because it wasn't like it was a criminal thing and it was illegal. It was, dangerous or whatever, but nobody got hurt. It was not criminal in the sense of I was trying to make money or hurt somebody, or it was a mental health episode.
Yeah. Okay. And what was the aftermath like? How have you been recovering? Are you better now? Like what's the
aftermath is basically I had to go to therapy, like a psychologist, make sure there's no like thing continuing to go on, that I'm not like torturing swan animals or something like that. Like I'm not like a insane person like trying to hurt people. And that was for like a year after that, and went through all that. It was good. Basically started taking care of my health, making sure I was eating like what I'm drinking now is like a mixture of like cocoa powder, go-to cola, and a bunch of other like L-tyrosin, maca root, that sort of stuff, ginger powder.
Really?
Yeah. So like
Sounds
since
terrible.
then it's basically
Sounds like it tastes terrible.
Oh, it does. Yeah,
it does.
One thing is like my taste buds and my nose don't really work too well. I don't think they ever have. And
real quick, we got to pause on that concoction you just described. I've never heard that list of ingredients. So is that like a custom?
Also calamus root. Calamus root is
so
thing.
This is like a custom like nootropic you designed for yourself. Like what is the?
Yeah, this is like how you know I'm mentally ill. I have a bunch of different herbs and a bunch of different things.
So are you saying that this is like the cocktail that you perfected that like cures your schizophrenia, or what?
Yeah, I will be selling this without FDA approval later. For anybody who has mental health issues, you should stop taking your medication and buy my blend of herbs. Since the but that's the thing, like making sure I'm getting like vitamins, nutrients, and eating healthy. Like I've done my best. I'm not perfect. Like every once in a while I'll have unhealthy food and that sort of thing. But I've tried to make sure my diet's cleaned up. Like processed foods is a big thing, like carbs and a bunch of other stuff, limiting that. And I was on antipsychotics. I was on Abilify for about a year, like a low dose. And then we slowly like lower the dose, make sure nothing was going wrong. And now I'm off that stuff. But yeah, so since then it's basically kind of been putting the pieces back together and making sure that nothing goes wrong in the process. And it definitely gave me a perspective being put in a psych ward, then going to jail. And basically now I have like a felony, in the fact that, if you're an employer, you're not going to want to hire somebody who has a mental health record. So it's kind of given me a lot of empathy for people who have serious issues, because I can see, and not even that, people who, when they're young, they're dumb, selling drugs, or like somebody from the inner city selling drugs or whatever. In high school, they get caught and then they have it on their record, or out of high school or whatever, they on their record, and from then on they can't get a decent job. It's kind of given me a lot of perspective in that sense to just the nature of selective empathy that I think people have in general, where people, it's on both sides, like left wing and right wing. People will talk about, oh, we're going to do this to fix the country, and oh, we're going to do this. And it's like, yeah, it's like you're going to do that, but things are bad right now for people like I'm lucky that I have supportive family and friends. Like if I didn't have that, my life would be over pretty much.
When you were
but, you know.
when you were in jail and the psych ward, did you write at all?
No, because that was like a big thing actually. When I was taking Abilify, which is apiprazole, I think, which is an antipsychotic, it basically kills you. It feels like it kills your soul, where you can't like that was a big thing for me. Like for me, I've been less sensitive than most people, but like for me, I've always had like a great sense of humor and like found things really funny, and that's like how I process things, and like I'll find the humor and stuff. But when I was on Abilify, I couldn't really feel anything. I wouldn't feel happy. I wouldn't feel sad. I remember at one point I would literally just pour a ton of sugar into like tea just to literally even feel anything, because I like just get enough of a jolt or whatever. But so I couldn't really write anything because I remember like talking to people, and I'd be going through the motions, and but I like to joke around a lot when I talk. Like that's just like, I like to make light of things. And I remember I was talking to people, and I was like, in my head, I was like, I don't even know what's funny anymore. So I don't know. Like I can't even talk to people.
And are you writing more now?
Yeah. So I'm off that. So I stopped. I couldn't really write. I couldn't really do much when I was on Abilify. But once I got off Abilify, that's when I said to myself, I was like, I need to see like, is my brain just shot? Like, is it just done? Mm-hmm. Am I destined to just, be miserable and not able to do anything? So I said, I'm going to work for, 90 minutes, 180 minutes a day, just writing. And I'm just going to keep doing this and see how it goes and see if I can do it. So then I kind of got in the habit of writing, and that's how I wrote like 3 books in a year. And that's basically the story of it. I wanted to see, did this Abilify that I just got off like ruin my mind?
Right. So you're back at it, and it has not ruined your mind. Okay, awesome. That's great. And so, I mean, is there a relationship, do you think, between your writing and your mental health dynamics? Like when you did have a psychotic break, was that was that like at the peak of like a writing spree or something, or what's anything? It
wasn't. It was actually, that was like a peak of like not writing or not doing creative stuff. That was like I was working, doing different jobs and like navigating the world and trying to make sense of, my brain's going crazy. But
was that also from the internet? Like, was the internet making you go crazy?
It wasn't. I think it was partly that, like the stresses of being, like back during like 2015, 2016 or whatever. It got to the point where, like, I don't know if you remember, but stuff was like really tense, and like people were getting their lives ruined. And I watched a lot of people I knew get their lives ruined and get involved in stuff that I thought was unhealthy and that sort of stuff. And being around a lot of extreme people with like extreme outcomes.
Are you referring to like
a toll.
People getting canceled or like opioids, or what
canceled? Also, it's like, there were a lot of people who went off the deep end mentally. Just like, it was like, I think like every election cycle, and you could even see it with this one, I think to a less degree though, like there's like mass psychosis that goes on both sides, of like people on both sides are like, this is the end of the world if my candidate doesn't win, or you know what I mean?
Right. So that's actually one of the recurring themes of your book, I would say. You kind of have this perspective where like everyone in the world has some kind of serious psychosis or neurosis, but like some people are better at kind of hiding it than others. And you basically kind of like to make fun of pretty much everyone. You kind of make fun of people who are unsuccessful and who complain, but you also make fun of people who are really successful. And so it's kind of interesting. Like, is this your theory? Like, maybe you could expand on this, like that everyone has psychosis or neurosis of some kind, and they're just like hiding it and bullshitting it, or what's the Paul Towne like meta narrative?
No, the meta narrative is like we're all doomed and stuff's gonna get really bad.
Is that what you think?
Besides that,
is that what you think though? Well, hang on, because there's actually a lot of optimism in your book. Like one of the other recurring themes I would say is that you're often saying things like life is not that hard and it's actually easier than people think. And it's not that hard to just basically get by and have a decent, happy life if you can just kind of like have the right attitude and stop complaining about things like that. You say that kind of stuff a lot. So it doesn't sound, it doesn't, your writing doesn't come off as doom pilled as you just described it.
Yeah. It really depends. Like I'm of multiple minds of this sort of thing where it's like I can focus if I'm focusing on the mechanical, like the analytical aspect of things, I'm very pessimistic, where I'm like, this is really bad. Like stuff is heading in a really bad direction. But if I'm focused on like a personal, in a personal perspective, I'm thinking to myself, like that was a big thing when I went to jail. I looked around and I was like, jail's kind of like filled with losers, and like a lot of these losers are 30s and their 40s and their 50s, and they're alive. So if they're able to be alive, yeah, obviously their life sucks, they're in jail, but it can't be that hard if people I consider losers, and I know I was in jail too, so I was a loser too. I still am, but if these people can be fine and they're older than me, then like obviously I'm worrying about something I shouldn't really worry about too much. So personally,
were any of them cool?
Oh yeah, there were some cool people. There was one guy who was like an actual arsonist. Like he like really enjoyed setting fires. He wasn't like mentally ill. Well, he was mentally ill, but it wasn't because of a schizophrenic thing. And he like took me aside and we were watching like The Walking Dead or something. He's like, yeah, man. And he had like I don't know if you've been around people who have like heroin problems, like addiction, like the heroin voice. It's like the voice is like super scratchy. It's like it's like it's like very guttural. He had like the heroin voice, and he was like, yeah, man. He was like, it's so cool. Like when I was your age, like I was in the city and I was like setting dumpsters on fire. And I'm like, that's awesome, man. Like it's cool. Like that's very cool. Thank you for telling me this. He was cool. I would play ping pong with some people. They were cool.
So
there's an old black guy.
Is jail like worse than people think, or not as bad as people think?
The thing that sucks about jail, well, it depends on your personality. For me, it was nice because it was in a way like wow, like I don't have to pick out my outfit. I get food delivered to me from in my cell, and I don't have to like worry about things. I can just sleep on my cot. I can do that. But it was the thing that was bad about jail was the food sucked. The food is really, really bad. Psych ward food is much better than
how long
jail
were you
food.
And was it prison or county?
No,
or
it was
state
jail.
or
So basically jail, the way it works is jail is like holding you while you're waiting for court stuff. And also if you're getting under like a year sentence, it might depend on the state, but at least here in New York is like, if you're getting a sentence under like a year, you're going to get like jail.
So how long were you in for?
I was in jail for 2 months while I was waiting for the court stuff to figure out.
Okay, so it sounds like not that bad. You met some cool people. Yeah. The food sucked, but it was kind of chill. Yeah, it was. And it was also, it was literally like the tail end of the psychotic episode. So I was still kind of like mentally out of it. And I was on antipsychotics, so I was sleeping a lot. I see. Yeah. And in those kinds of jails, that's not where you're like physically at risk. That's the
I was put in because it was the nature of the crime was violent. I was put in like the violent offenders, but it's a county jail. It's not like I'm not like on the border in a border town or in the hood or something where.
Right. Did you feel unsafe or scared physically at all?
Not really, no. But I don't really get anxious about that sort of stuff. But I wasn't really too worried. I'm pretty good in like social situations, so I was never too worried about that.
Okay, fascinating. Stuff. And so, how many, before you had your episode and went to the psych ward and jail, how many books had you written at that point?
None. All the stuff I've written is
it's all jail. After. Oh, yeah. Okay. Oh, okay. Right. I misremembered that then. Okay. And so since then, how many books have you written in total? 6 books. That's awesome. So let's talk a little bit about these books. And my audience, I have a lot of people in my audience who are writers or different types of thinkers, philosophers, scientists, engineers, and a lot of people in my kind of orbit are very interested in independent publishing and things of this nature. So I'd love to break this down a little bit. Just on average, like what can you say about how well have the books done? Like, do you know how many books you've sold, like total? Do you have any estimate?
I haven't really kept track. I've like I don't know, maybe over the past few years, $10,000-$15,000 worth of books sold. I couldn't say that exactly, but probably around that amount.
Yeah, that's really not bad at all. Those are pretty impressive numbers. And I was looking at your, I think your most popular book is It Is the Secret, the one that I got, if I'm not mistaken, and it has 46 very good reviews on Amazon. And so that's not trivial at all. Like people don't really realize this, but there are many books that get published with prestigious New York publishers that sell far fewer than $15,000 worth of books, really. Some books with a lot of institutional backing still can totally flop. So, you've done really pretty well for yourself. And so
thank you.
Yeah. So I'd love to hear more about how you think about your writing. Like, is your plan to really go all in on writing? Are you an author? Are you working to make that your full-time gig? Is it already your full-time gig, or how do you think about like the career of an independent writer?
It's hard to say. I think if I was going to describe myself, artist or creative is probably the best way to do, because it's not just writing. Because I've done like video stuff, I've done programming, I've done live streaming stuff and audio stuff with people, and also like, just to be honest, like my life is kind of like an art project, in the sense that it's so out of the norm, and I've been involved in so much stuff I would honestly say it doesn't really fit into the, somebody who's going to 9 to 5 and somebody who's and that's not to say like, oh, this is so much cooler. It's more like I'm wired differently, so I can't, like, I need to be doing different stuff, not just writing, and that's one thing I wrote about in my book, actually, is that the reason I don't consider myself, like, I do writing, but I don't consider myself mainly a writer, because I think most people who are mainly writers are like, they don't really do anything else, so that's why they're writing. Like one thing I said is that the reason I was able to write these books, especially the first 3, like It Is a Secret and that series of books, is I'm on probation. I'm kind of stuck. I can't really travel. I can't really do much. I'm on good behavior, because if I mess up, I'll go to prison. So it's kind of like, definitely writing is something that it's a main focus, because I think it's the most accessible thing. But like, for example, like I'm working, like I've done like programming projects and that sort of stuff, made different tools and games and that sort of thing. Like I'm working on like a project now, which is like it's a kind of like, it's like a game, but it's partly an art project in addition to being a game. So I'm not doing just writing, but yeah, the writing is the main focus, in that it's the most accessible thing that people can appreciate.
And what's your trick for writing so much? A lot of people will find it very hard to write one 400-page book, but I believe you told me you wrote about 3 similar
3 400-page books, and then the writing, like every year now I'm writing just a collection of essays, which is 300 to 400 pages, in addition to novels and stuff.
I think you did 3 400-page books all in 2019. So tell us about your process, and like, how do you write so much?
It's the nootropic stack. It's the cocoa powder and the gotu cola and the calamus root and
really?
A bunch of other stuff. The guarana seed powder. It's, to be honest, I've always been kind of trapped in my head, even growing up. Like, I would have a lot of thoughts and a lot of things, and I wouldn't really have a way to express them. And especially my first 3 books was a good way of kind of all the thoughts I had trapped in my head growing up, and also seeing with political stuff, kind of from college to like 23, 24, those years of kind of being involved, not in like the sense of like community organizing, but being in those circles and seeing how stuff goes right and how stuff goes wrong, and then trying to give advice and then seeing it being ignored, and that sort of thing. Basically, like, the reason I can write so much and have been able to write so much is I just have a ton of thoughts, and growing up, I basically had a ton of thoughts, but like, you're a kid, so no one's going to pay attention to you. And if you speak out of turn, you're going to get, a bad reputation, that sort of stuff. So you kind of have to keep it to yourself.
Right.
That makes
sense.
I
think there are a lot of people out there who do have a lot of thoughts, but they still can't get themselves to write. Like, they can't get it together. Maybe they want to write, but it's hard for them to just force themselves to do it, or to do the
I would
discipline.
say,
if you have any thoughts for those people.
I've always had like whether it's not even just writing, whether it's if I'm drawing, or when I would be doing drawing or music or programming, I have a very monomaniacal sort of focus, like hyper focus on stuff. So if I get like keyed into something, I can do it for hours. Like like that's like a big thing for me. It's like especially with programming and that sort of stuff. Like I'll start programming, working on something in the morning, and I'll like skip meals. And it's not because I'm like, oh, I need to skip this meal because I'm working on this. It's more like, oh, I'll eat in 30 minutes, and then 30 minutes goes by, and I'll eat in an hour, or I'll eat, and then I look, and it's been like the whole day. And it's the same thing with writing. A little bit less so with writing, because writing is a lot more active. Like programming is more puzzle solving, and you can get into like almost like a trance where you're like just doing logic thing after logic thing, whereas writing is more creative. But yeah, for me, I think that's my leg up, is that if I'm focused on something, and that's even like if I'm like on Discord, if I'm talking with people, if I'm getting into it, I'll always be like the last person in the Discord call, because my brain doesn't like send me signals to like switch off from whatever I'm doing, which is good. It's good, but it's also, if I'm playing a video game, I can find myself playing a video game for 16 hours, 18 hours without eating. If I'm doing other stuff, if I'm reading, if I'm on Twitter, or if I'm, just like wasting my time, I can do that, and my brain isn't going to send me a signal of like, you need to stop, like you need to go do other stuff.
Okay. And how are you thinking about the near future for you as a writer, creator, artist, however you want to think of yourself? Like, do you build plans and strategies in your mind, or are you very much just kind of one day at a time, do whatever you feel like doing? Because you definitely do seem to kind of evoke in your writings like a style of, you do whatever you want all the time, don't strategize. That's for like bugman cucks.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, like the real
People
Paul Towne.
people
like,
want to have stability and
well, I'm just curious,
respect,
like the real Paul Towne, like how you think about the next few years of your life, like building back up after like having these difficulties. Like, do you have a kind of longer term game plan for what you want to build or achieve over time, or are you really just kind of one day at a time, do whatever you want, be creative, who cares?
I have like an overarching, so like for me, I just finished a book writing called Rose, which I started earlier this year, and I kind of took most of the year to write, but I took a little break because it was getting frustrating to write. But for me, it's kind of like I'll have one or two projects, whether that's writing or programming or something else that I'm working on, and I'll just focus on that until I'm done with that. And then once I get done with it, I'll just choose something else to do. Like one thing I found is that if I'm not working on something creative, I'll just be miserable. And that's, I think, because there's not much materially I have, in the sense of like, I can't be like, oh, I'm going to go, on a vacation. I'm going to go, I'm not like very comfortable materially. So, I mean, I could be worse. I could be, under a bridge. So I'm not complaining about that. But it's like, for me, like at this moment, it's kind of like almost like a gopher where you dig a hole in front of you, you push a little dirt behind you, and then once you're done with that, you're like, all right, now time to dig another hole, dig another hole. But yeah, for the next few years, it's hard to say. I think, like I told you this before when we talked a bit prior, I'm trying to figure out, like, I do have that monomaniacal focus on stuff, but I'm trying to figure out a way to balance that out with actually having relationships and friendships and like normal person stuff, because that's one thing. Like, I'm 26, so I'm still young, but I'd have noticed, and that's one reason I have been able to write a lot, is I've kind of sacrificed friendships and relationships and just stuff most people take for granted. And I'm not complaining. I made the conscious choice to do that. But I think I need to find a healthy balance where I'm not like so monomaniacally focused on one thing, but I might not be able to, because I've been doing this my whole life. So it might just be the way I'm wired. I'm not sure.
Well, I mean, one of the cool things about writing books is that once you write one and it goes into, your catalog and people can buy it at any time, in theory, the more books you write, the easier it should be to build a stable income, because
that's true.
Every time you earn a new fan, they could buy a couple books, and over time.
And it's like word of mouth exponentially, where if it's
exactly.
Good,
so that's what I was kind of getting at, is like, are you pursuing a vision to like continue to double down on your writing and like build a career?
So I finished. Basically, I finished.
I'm just basically trying to get a sense of like, do you think you can build a career out of writing books on the internet?
Yeah. I finished a Rose, which is it's like a horror novel. You can get it like rose.paul.town. It links to Amazon, but
I'll put a link in the show notes.
Yeah. And but it's like now, like that's the thing. Like I started really like It Is a Secret, It Is a Second, It Is a Sequence, and then my books of essays, which are just going to be 2020, 2021, 2022. Those are like my more philosophical, even though It Is a Secret is very funny. It's like a lot of satire and nonsense. The two books after that are increasingly less so. But those are like my main philosophical, quote unquote. I mean, which is hard to say because I'm young, so you can't really, who knows where I'll be in 10 years. But right now, those are like my main philosophical things. But now I'm kind of doing more creative novel stuff, like John, which is a novel, Rose, which is a novel. And then what I'm writing right now is a collection of like short stories, which is kind of like Halloween themed, like spooky horror / comedy stories. And you see, so my thing is I'm kind of branching out where now I'm kind of hitting, this is very topical. People know what they're getting when they're buying it. Like It Is a Secret, like you don't really know what you're getting when you're buying it.
No, it's extremely obscure.
Yeah. Which is I kind of did that on purpose. I kind of want to make it broad. But so now that I have those things done, I'm kind of working on more pointed, more consumer friendly stuff. And I think that'll work. Because
interesting.
Yeah.
So you alluded before to doing a titling convention of you're just going to name it like 2021, 2022. And each book is just going to compile your essays from that year, basically?
Yeah, these are my more analytical essays and stuff.
Okay, that's interesting. Because you don't really do any like systematic promotion. And in fact, you kind of write about this in your book about how you like just refuse to be like a corny marketer type guy, like shilling your stuff.
Yeah, that's what like I remember like growing up, like I remember like I was like a little kid. Somebody asked me like, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" And I was like, I don't know, like maybe I'll go into like a cabin and write or do art until I die or something. Like I've never had the idea, like for me, it's always been self-expression, trying to get my thoughts out, whether that's being art or writing or music or something or programming or making a game or something, or even just talking to people. It's always been the commercial aspect to it is always secondary. Like I've never really been motivated by money. I mean, I would like to have money, but it's not my driving thing. So I just don't have the motivation for it. I'd rather be, when I finish a project, instead of like focusing on marketing it, I'd much rather focus on writing something new.
Totally. Yeah, I feel that for sure. So do you have a scene of people that you roll with? I mean, I know you have friends on the internet. You kind of have like, there's a little kind of subculture that I would say you're a part of. It's hard to name it or describe it exactly, but I'm vaguely aware of some of the people in your
unemployed, mentally unhealthy people. Yeah.
Is that maybe I don't necessarily know people, but are there other writers that you are particularly close with or in dialogue with, or is this like a completely isolated affair in your own head, or do you have any interlocutors or people you're kind of citing or reading or writing like in community with at all?
Not really. The people that I like are more, they're adjacent to the circles I'm in, but they're not doing the same thing I'm doing, because I'm very like, it's like you can probably pick up on this just from reading a little bit of It Is a Secret. It's like I'm very both inwardly directed and outwardly like very particular and very like judgmental, and that's not in like a judgmental like, oh, like your clothes aren't, well, it's like, oh, are you thinking clearly? Are you lucid? Do I agree with you? Or is your writing in a way that I like or whatever? And I think the Catholic nun strategy of writing really rubbed off on me there, where it's like very, very particular of like, oh, this is cool, like this is good, like I approve it, or oh, this sucks, I hate it, you need to destroy this. So for me, I'm not very good with. I literally from all the people in the circles, I try not to read their stuff, because if I like them and I read something that like makes me think less of them, I'll just like think less of them. But like, yeah, there's a few different people. It's more the people that I'm more friends with are interested in stuff like that I'm interested in, but I know I'm not good at, so I can just kind of trust them.
So like what?
So there's a guy named Grim Hood, which is he's like a personal health guy.
Yeah.
He's really smart. I really respect him, and he does like herbalism type of things. And the reason I like him a lot is because he also had like schizophrenia and a bunch of other stuff. Like he had drug addiction problems and that sort of things. And for me, it's like having pulled myself out of like the mental health nosedive. It wasn't like the same deal as him, but like having mental health problems and being able to pull myself out of it. Like I kind of know like the people I really respect are people who've had serious problems that are like could have destroyed them, and then they managed to like pull themselves out of it. And yeah, so
I'm seeing him
also,
on Twitter. He goes by Magnesium Poppy.
he's really smart,
Okay.
and that's the thing. I really respect him because I know he knows what he's talking about. He's like a savant.
Okay, interesting. Who else out there like who's writing now that you fuck with?
I like writing wise, I'm not really sure, but I like the break the rules people.
Oh yeah, Lev, I know those guys.
And yeah, Lev and Geo and that sort of thing, and they're really fun because I think what they do is really important, where they bring in these people who in their heads they think they're like on this team of like, you know, I'm right winger, I'm left winger, I'm, you know, blah blah blah, and then they mix them in with other people, and it's actually a productive discussion. Like I've been on there a few times, and not to tell people to leave your show and go watch their show.
No, I've been on there too. They're cool.
Yeah, they're awesome.
They're friends of the show.
Yeah. Then I would say, like, I like Bronze Age Pervert. I like Logo. And it's not particularly their right. It's more like their character and their characters. You know, like Logo, I'm actually a big fan of, just because he'll write stuff that like I agree with, but he'll write in a way that I just hate. It makes me like want to disagree with him.
And you know? And what about the canon? Are there writers, whether they be philosophers or novelists or aphoristes,
I like
who do you take the most inspiration from?
I think my favorite philosopher is probably Bataille. The Accursed Share and erotism is those two things are really influential, especially the Accursed Share with regards to like economy and the way excess gets dealt with, that sort of thing. I also
Go on.
Yeah, I also like Schopenhauer a ton. Like World is Will and Representation. I really enjoy that, and I think it's his kind of determinism sort of thinking is, you know, I don't agree with 100% because I'm more hardline than he is, I think. But I really do think he was on to something. Nietzsche or however you pronounce it.
Yeah,
he's good, but he's more, I think, more of like a poet than that. Like I just really like his like passion and that sort of stuff. Then also who else do I have? I like Dune. Dune's good, but that's not really philosophy. That's
all right.
But like Baudrillard. I like a lot of like because I come from like a computer science background. I like a lot of information theory stuff, which is more dealing with like entropy in communication. And the writings I've read on are more technical. They're related to like sending radio waves out, and there's like bits that get lost and that sort of stuff. But it applies to communication in general because, you know, I'm speaking, you know, paragraphs, and X percentage of that is going to be lost, you know, just communicating back and forth. I'm a big fan of like Bernays too, which is with like propaganda. Ryan Holiday, Trust Me, I'm Lying. But yeah, no, I like Schopenhauer and Bataille. Also like Lucretius, which is like On the Nature of Things. I really like that. That's like poetry, but it's also really good because it shows kind of like stuff that changes here affects stuff over there, and it's very beautiful. I like a lot of the Stoics, but I think they're kind of silly because their context. But I think even though they're silly, a lot of their thinking is good, especially if you're frustrated.
Right. Okay. Fascinating. So I can see the Schopenhauer in your work. That kind of makes that makes some natural sense to me. But what did you learn from Bataille in particular? I'm curious, like, how did that influence your own work or writings or thoughts?
Yeah, for me, it was for the accursed share. It was the sense of a society or an organism needs to find a way to get rid of excess energy, or else it's gonna destroy the internal attributes of it.
Okay, and what does that mean for you in your life?
For me, it means I always need to have something I'm doing, because like for me, like if I'm not like boredom is a big thing I struggle with, like not being bored, and if I don't have something productive I'm working on, in my head I'm thinking like I need to go do something that's like dangerous, or I need to go, cause problems, so I have like some sort of like stimulation. So I need to be working on. That's another reason I always try to work on projects, because if I'm not, I'll get into trouble, which is not good to get into. But also with I really like with erotism, where Bataille's talking about taboo and the nature of taboo, and I have a few essays on that actually in my newer books, which is thinking of it is in the terms of it's like a kind of like a small creature that like you can you create, and then you start running from, and the longer you run from, the bigger it gets, and eventually it's going to catch up, if it's a bad taboo. But that's one thing I really like with Bataille speaking on taboo, which is basically that at a certain point, like a taboo gets so big that to break it is like gonna fundamentally transform you. And I've definitely noticed that with myself for, standing for different things or saying different things. Like if you let yourself compromise, and if you kind of half sell yourself or whatever, or you're dishonest in order to get something in the short term, the longer it goes on, like the more the consequences are when you kind of have to really address it, unless you end up being fundamentally changed by never confronting the taboo.
So you told me once that the internet is like a schizophrenia simulator. Could you explain that? Could you unpack that?
It's definitely making people I think psychosis simulator is a better term for it, because like schizophrenia is different, where it's like your brain's just like processing everything and saying, oh, this matters, everything matters, the billboard you just drove by matters, the words on it matter to you personally, that's right. But whereas the internet's more like, if you have any whatever neurosis you have, or whatever fear or obsession or unhealthy, whether that's like sexual desire or personal desire, or fear, or hate or bigotry towards, or love for, or taste for, whatever abnormality you have, you can kind of lean into in a way that really wasn't available in the past. And so basically, like, if you're left wing and you're scared of, white people, or, Christians, or capitalists, or people like Republicans, or whatever, gun owners, if you're scared of that, you can easily find an unlimited amount of like material that's going to tell you, yeah, you're right. Like, this is the end of the world. These people are taking over. These people are going to go kill your family, or trying to, deport people, or whatever. Or they hate gay people, and the gay people are about to lose all their rights, or trans people are about to lose all their rights. Like, if you're left wing and that's your thing, you're worried about, not even left wing, or you're just whatever issue you care about. If you're right wing and you think, oh, black people are violent, or black people are going to kill me in my home, or steal something from me, or Hispanics are taking over, illegal immigration, or the gay people are trying to have sex with my kids, or something like that. Whatever your neurosis, if you're right wing, you're going to be like able to find an unlimited amount of material, just like the left wing person, and they're going to it's going to tell you, yeah, you're 100% right. You need to fight against this. You need to subscribe to this podcast. You need to, donate to this candidate. You need to spend all your time. You can't have friends. You can't be a normal person. You can't have hobbies. You can't, go out on a barbecue with XYZ type of person, because this person's an enemy. And it really, no matter what it is, whether left wing, right wing, apolitical, religious, anti-religious, or whatever, spiritual, anti-spiritual, or anything really, even sports wise, or whatever, like, it's really just it's like everyone's making a hell for themselves of like their personal fear or worry is now the focus, and there's an unlimited amount of information that they can find. And just, well, you can see it especially with like COVID, and whether that's people who are scared of COVID being very dangerous, or people scared of the vaccine being very dangerous. And it's like the normal healthy thing to say is, oh, I'm getting the vaccine, I'm not getting the vaccine, or yeah, I'm going to do this, and then moving on with your life. Whereas it's become, for the last year and a half, it's I'm on team. It's like Twilight for adults, for like men, and the women. It's like, I'm team Edward. No, I'm team whatever the other Jacob. And it's like, now for the next year and a half, I'm going to be researching my team, and I'm going to be attacking and threatening and trying to ruin the life and harassing anybody else in the other team. And it's literally like, it's like Twilight for society.
And so you have experience with psychosis. So are you saying that basically from your memory of what it's like to have a psychotic break, that it's there are like observable parallels between like internet culture and what you experienced having a psychotic break?
Yeah, I would say most people are in like the early stages of, it's called like, in the terms of schizophrenia, it's a prodromal schizophrenia. It's like the pre stages of psychosis, where it's like there's like the obsession, there's like the unhealthy like focus on this to the exclusion of things that are healthy, and the just complete like loss of, like people have lost any empathy for other people. And you saw the first hints of this during like the 2016 election with like pro-Trump people were insane, and I was insanely mean to people, but like pro-Trump people, and so were anti-Trump people. They were insanely mean to Trump people, and you saw hints of it. Kind of died down a bit, but with Corona and that sort of stuff, it's like you look at like everybody's locked in, whether it's left wing or right wing or pro-vax or anti-vax, and it's not getting better. It's not. There's no end in sight, really.
Were you a Trump supporter?
Yeah, I was. Yeah. I actually have like the white Trump hat, which is worth like a few $100 now. But I was, in the sense, it was more of a middle finger to everybody I kind of disdain and hate more than.
Totally. I think that's a lot of people.
Yeah.
There's a interesting quote from your book that I just wanted to pull out because I think my audience might like it. I want you to expand on it. This is from It Is the Secret, in a section called An Implicit Society. What you say that in order to stay ahead of the game instead of losing it, people must learn to play into the new advantages that an implicit society has that an explicit society does not. And then you say, there is almost no way to ever be permanently punished if you know how to convert shame or mistakes into social capital. Words are more powerful than ever. Almost nobody seems capable of dealing with a blend of the explicit and the implicit. So I wonder if you could unpack that a little bit. I think it's really, I think it's a really interesting idea, and I think I get where you're going with it. But I think my audience would like to hear more about how, there's almost no way to ever be permanently punished if you know how to convert shame and mistakes into social capital. Yeah,
I would say that the addendum I would add to that now with a few years' experience is, if you get like on a blacklist by the government, you can't fly, or your bank gets shut down, or you're like a terrorist now, that's where your punishment is real. But besides that, I would say like most people are reactive in the sense they're thinking, but they're more reacting to cues. So like, for example, with my situation, if I had like disappeared after my psychotic episode, I would be known as like, oh, that he went crazy and then he burned down a building and he's just insane. He's an insane person. And look at this freak. Like, just what a freak. Everything I would have done, everything, my reputation, and that if I disappeared after that, it would have been like, wow, like he's guilty of something horrible. But because I basically treated it as, oh, this is a mental health thing, I'm not going to hide from it. I'm not lying about it. I'm not like, when people bring it up, I'm not going to be like, I can't talk. I don't want to talk about that. Because I reacted to it in a way where it was like, yeah, this is like a dumb thing, and it was me mentally ill, and it's, it's not something I'm proud of. It's something that it's like the lowest point of my life. Because I reacted to it in a way that kind of humanized me, it made it so all of a sudden, the people who have genuine intentions and the people who are not just malicious, or which is, you know, there are some malicious people, but majority of people are not malicious. And because, you know, it wasn't something that I was doing to hurt somebody or that sort of thing. I was mentally ill and I had a mental episode.
So basically, what you're saying is that you can do almost anything, including like go crazy and burn down a barn.
Yeah.
But if you handle it, if you just roll with it.
But if you act like, if you like act like it's not the end of the world, and you act like I could have, you know, just say hypothetical, and this isn't the case, but like just say I was malicious and like burned down an orphanage or something with kids in it or something. And then I came on and I was like, oh yeah, like that was the old me. Like I learned my lesson. Like, you know, it's, you know, obviously everyone makes mistakes, blah, blah, blah. Just like acted like it was like, oh yeah, I jaywalked. Like it was like that. If I acted like that, like long enough, people will eventually, you can see it with like OJ Simpson or whatever. Like,
right.
If you just act like it's not a big deal, it doesn't really matter. And it basically just converts to like attention and capital.
Yeah, it's also like Trump, right? He's an example of that as well.
Yeah, Trump is a perfect example.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like basically I remember when the audio came out of him like grabbing by the you know what, you know. I don't want to be too crass. And any other person, they'd be like, all right, I'm dropping out. I'm sorry. That was inappropriate. But because he did it literally worked in his favor, where people are like, oh, this is cool. Like, oh, he's so cool. Like, you know, which is like, first off, I don't know. It's still kind of stupid to say, like, whatever. But it's like, like there's no, everything is so constant and there's so much information constantly being fed and news cycles 24/7 and that sort of thing, where it's like, there's very few things, as long as you're not put in prison or like on a terrorist list and deplatformed from everything. There's very few things that actually matter, in as long as you can like not feel bad about it, which is a big thing for a lot of people. I'm a lot less sensitive. Like I think a lot of people like they'd have their, you know, for me, like that moment like where I went crazy and I have my mugshot and I haven't slept in a while and I look bad, and that's kind of shameful in the sense where it's like, oh, like look at you, like you went crazy and you got arrested or whatever. Like for most people that would be so shameful and so upsetting and embarrassing that they wouldn't even want to be around or deal with it. But because like I'm less sensitive and I push through it, and like it doesn't really matter at this point. It's annoying because it's like I've heard the same thing over and over again. But it's not something that's like, to me it's like I kind of look at that now and I look at it and like wow, like look, a few years ago like my life was like I was like mentally out of my mind, and now I'm doing well. I have stuff to show for it, and it's kind of like it's proof. It's like a positive thing to me. It's like, look where I've come from. I kind of recovered from something really, really bad, and
totally.
I'm proud of that. You know,
no, I like that a lot. It makes a lot of sense. Next question: why do hardcore drug addict girlfriends make the best wives?
Oh, you found that essay is funny. Well, it's like if you think about like HBD, like the people who are, you know. Like I'm assuming most of your listeners they're not coming from like you know, they're not like aristocrats. Maybe they are. Maybe they're like, you know, this Hunter Biden's listening to this, you know. So if you're Hunter Biden, you're the drug addict, so you don't need to listen to this. But if you're like just the average person or whatever, your options are not, you know, unless you're like rich or you're, you know, mentally unhinged author like me, you're not going to have many great options. So what you want to do is it's almost like going to, you know, if you're on Amazon, you go to the refurbished section and you get something that's kind of like open box. So it's a discount price, you know, you might not be able to afford it if it's not open box, but if it's open box, you can afford it. Like a very expensive electronics, but with the girlfriend or whatever, you know, you want somebody who is like the DNA to where if they have a kid with you, like your kid's going to be smart, they're going to be good looking, they're going to be talented or whatever. So if you find somebody who's like really, really high IQ, like a lot of people, there are like two types of drug addicts. So the drug addicts are just kind of like trash and they're just doing drugs because they're a loser. And then there are also drug addicts where like they can't cope with reality because they're too smart and they're like obsessive and like they're, you know, they don't have like a positive outlet. They haven't really found one. So they're like, I'm just going to like kill my brain so I don't have to think too much. And you want to find that second type, you know, that girl she's like a savant, you know, she's like a genius, but like she could never found like a place to really, you know, put that energy. So she's like, I'm just going to get high, you know, I'm going to
right. So basically you're saying you can use a girl's drug addiction as a way to get a really, really high quality jeans, but for cheap,
a real fixer.
basically. Like,
well,
you're
getting
saying basically,
upper.
look, you want a girl, you want to find a girl who's like from like a really well-to-do, high IQ, rich family in like Nantucket or something like that, but she's the black sheep who like got addicted to heroin when she's a teenager. So her genes are really, really good, but you can get her for cheap on the market because she's got fucked up drug problems.
Yeah, it's like a fixer-upper on like a neighborhood, like a house that kind of dilapidated. You can fix it up and make it beautiful.
Okay, I like it. Here's another one. So people like Jordan Peterson and Jocko Willink will tell you that you always have to make your bed in the morning. It's very important, and this is good for your life. It's good for your character. Here on page 146, you say, don't make your bed. You have a whole essay against making your bed, why you think it's a psyop. You say, don't make your bed. Don't dress nicely. Don't drive a nice car. Don't be nice to other people or learn how to use big words. Don't be prompt or on time. Don't ever go above and beyond what is functional. To do so is to reveal your hand and remove yourself from the realm of the mystic, the realm of the genius, the savant. A master chooses not to clean his room. A slave obeys the tenets of order.
Yeah. Yeah, that's I'm tapping into some chaotic, some dark, chaotic forces in there.
And so why is it that a bed that isn't made signifies status and power?
Well, it's like, you know, especially if you're like me, you're living with your family still, you know, it's like you're showing them you're not controlled, you know, you're showing the authority figures that, you know, it's very punk, you know, it's like no mom, no dad, my room's messy and it's never going to be clean until you kick me out. If you're man enough to ruin my life and kick me out, then you can get the room clean. But until that point, my room is going to be a trash, you know, and it shows your will, you know.
One of the things I like about your writing is that you're able to kind of combine like real humility and modesty. And, you know, you refer to your own, you know, failures in life and your challenges in life. And you refer to, as you just did, like living with your parents, and, you know, you're very honest and forthright about the ways in which, you know, you could do better maybe. But you're also very confident, and you regularly refer to yourself as, you know, very handsome, very smart, very powerful, high status. And you get a lot of chicks, and, you know, you have a powerful,
it's all true.
Yeah. So this is, to me, one of the most fun kind of parts of reading you, and one of the most interesting aspects, that you're very confident, and you're not shy about saying, you know, what you think is very powerful about yourself, but you're also very direct about, you know, being transparent about the aspects of your life which are maybe not so impressive. So how do you do that? Like, how do you maintain the swagger and the bravado of being super confident and, you know, being really, just confident in your own powers and your future success that you believe in, but also, you know, be transparent about like the parts of your life which are kind of fucked up and which you haven't really done a great job with so far. How do you maintain like that ego and that bravado while also being honest about the stuff that's fucked up in your life?
Yeah, I think the best way to put it would be we live in a fucked up world, Justin.
Okay.
We live in a very fucked up world, and it's important to everything good in your life. For me, everything good in my life, I take credit for. I say this is because I am a hard worker and smart and clever. I'm not wise, but I'm very clever, and I'm a hard worker and dedicated and handsome and charming and humble. And then everything bad in my life, everything that's gone wrong, I say, this is the fault of my parents. This is the fault of society. This is the fault of strangers who are fucking around with my life. These are the fault of evil spirits. They're in the house and they're messing with me. They're making it so I can't find my wallet when I want to go out to eat. That sort of thing. It's basically being able to split the good things and say that's you, and then all the bad things in life is somebody else's fault. But
Something that's very admirable about you, that's unique, is the stuff that you blame on the world, you don't let that make you resentful. And I think that's really, really key, right? Because a lot of people blame the world for all their problems, and then they just like go on Twitter and they're like angry, resentful, whining babies who are just like complaining about how the world has ruined their life. But you don't do that. You don't do that at all. And then you're very against that kind of attitude. So how do you blame the world for your problems without falling into the trap of resentment?
Yeah, I think I definitely struggle with that in the sense where it's like if I'm not busy doing something and I get thinking like, oh, why do other people have nice stuff that I don't have? Or why do other people have the reputation they have while I don't have the reputation? I can get resentful and I can get bitter and that sort of thing. And so it's very important for me to stay busy. It's what's that saying? The idle hands are the devil's plaything. It's kind of that with for me. It's like I have that's why staying busy is very important for me. Because a big thing about masculinity and being like a man and being like a real man, as not like I'm alpha, I work out, which is good. It's good to work out and that sort of stuff, but not I have tons of sex in clubs with drunk girls, not that's like real masculinity is it's okay to identify a problem and it's okay to say this is messed up or this is a problem or this isn't fair, this isn't right. But if that's what all you're doing, if all you're doing is saying like, well, it's not fair, it's not right, and then you just whine about it, that's not being a man, that's being like a child. If you're one thing I've always tried to do, and I'm not perfect at it, but I always try to keep in mind is if I'm going to whine about something, and I do whine about stuff, if I'm going to complain about something, if I'm going to get upset about something, I should only do that if that's the precursor to actually doing something to try to fix it. Because for me, I think being a man and being an adult, the proper thing to do is either try to fix something that you identify as a problem or suck it up and deal with it and be like, all right, this sucks, but I can't do anything about it. So I'm not going to invest energy into thinking about it. And it's a constant process for me. It's something that I need to, at times, like I need to really center myself and realize that, hey, I am drifting in a direction of being resentful. I'm drifting in a direction of being bitter about stuff. And, it's, especially as I get older, the longer I do this, the more temptation I have to be bitter or resentful, that sort of thing. But yeah, it's just always trying to be self-aware, about that sort of thing. And when I identify it, try to stop it,
Right on, man. Right on. Well, dude, like I said, I was really honestly I'm pretty impressed by your book. I never, I pay a lot of attention to random weird stuff on the internet and I'm always poking around and I'll take a look at lots of different things, but I usually don't expect much. I expect things to just be, scams or grifts and just, a lot of people will put almost anything between two covers and sell it on Amazon.
Yeah.
Paul Scalise, for
I was
instance.
actually going to say, a lot of people don't know is Paul Scalise actually ghost wrote all of my books.
No. I doubt that.
I paid him, yeah.
I doubt that. Have you read his books?
I've looked at them, yeah. I wrote enough of one to write like a really bad Goodreads review of one.
They're like fake. They're like fake books. It's like screenshots of tweets.
Which I kind of, at a certain point, it's like I kind of admire. Like, wow, you managed to get a New York Times article written about you. Like, that's impressive.
So if Paul, I'll say right here and now, if Paul Scalise is probably the most overrated indie writer on the internet, I think maybe Paul Towne might be the most underrated indie author on the internet, because I really have to say I enjoyed reading it more than I expected I would, and there's more insight per page than I think people would expect. It's a very unique style. You really do have authentic messages and a unique personal story and background that really infuses your writing with authenticity and a real kind of weight to it. And it's funny. It's interesting. It's weird. And there's real insights hidden all throughout here. And at 400 pages, it's a real nice piece of work. So I'm glad I'm very glad I paid $20 for this.
Books and me too. Piece of work. Yeah.
What's that?
Piece of work is a good way to describe me.
Yeah. I mean, and you're very ambiguous and mysterious. So I think there's probably a fair number of people out there who maybe they know of you through Twitter. Maybe they like looked at your Amazon page or whatever, and they were like, they just weren't sure if it's going to be good, if there's anything actually there, if they should drop $20. And I would say for anyone listening, this is, if you like books, and especially if you like interesting independent people on the internet, this is well worth your $20. I'm very glad that I got it.
If you like Into the Mouth of Madness in book form.
Well, I enjoyed reading it, and I think you're an underrated author, and I'm rooting for you. I'd love to see you. I hope you keep writing.
It's no Base Deleuze, but it's close.
No, I mean, Base Deleuze is nothing really to write home about. It's really just my first independent book that I wanted to do real fast, and just to do the process and see how it went. So, I mean, it's definitely not the most impressive work at all by any means. Teasing. But no, I mean, I was happy with it. I think it's a cool little book.
Yeah, but, no, it's awesome. It's and like that's the thing is like it's like you get like 80-90% of the way through, and then you're thinking to yourself like, should I publish this? Should I not publish this? What are people going to think? That sort of thing.
Yeah, why not? I mean, a book is not that different than a blog post, really, with Amazon and like the new digital publishing environment. It's like you don't have to overthink it. Like if you can write a book that's like 100 pages or more, and it fits into a book, and it looks good and feels good as a book, there's no reason not to publish it. Even it doesn't have to be like the most amazing thing ever. I mean, something that I really appreciate about your work, Paul, is that you don't care too much about spelling and grammar, and you're just honest about about that. And I think, well, first of all, your spelling and grammar is not that bad at all, but it's just basically this is what a book looks like if it doesn't have a professional editor cleaning everything up. You're just honest about that. And honestly, I mean, in the internet age, like, I mean, when you're just starting out, when you're a young guy like you and you don't have capital to like spend on an editor, I don't think there's anything wrong with publishing books, your first set of books without an editor. I mean, if you don't have access to an editor, if you don't have the capital to pay an editor, then whatever, your first books might have some spelling and grammar errors. Who cares? Like, it was still very readable. I didn't really mind at all. It doesn't, you're good enough as a writer, your spelling and grammar is good enough that it was more than perfectly fine to just read fairly smoothly, even if there are some errors there. But this is something I think people overrate. People think like, oh my God, I can't publish a book unless I can, make sure that every single word is exactly perfect. Like, no, there can be a few errors. It's not the end of the world. Like, if you have something to say and it's a good book and interesting in its own right for other reasons, then your audience will deal with a few typos, and then you just publish a bunch of books, get big, build an audience, make money, and then you can start hiring an editor, and your later books can be better. And you can even pay an editor to go over and edit your old books and clean them up and release a second edition or whatever. So I like your attitude I like your DIY attitude of like, I'm just going to write my heart out. I'm going to keep publishing a ton, and who cares if the spelling and grammar mistakes? I'm just going to keep publishing. So yeah, man, I'm a fan. I'm a fan of you. I'm a fan of your work. I really want to see you keep.
Thank you very much.
I really want to see you keep publishing books, and I think you have a really good shot at being able to like make a career for yourself because you have a real message and you have a unique style, and you definitely have the discipline to execute. So I hope you keep it up. And if there's ever anything I could do to help, or if you want to come back on the show, or if we could help in any way, definitely let us know. It's
nice to get it's nice to be able to talk about stuff, and I think I'm getting to the age where I'm still obviously young, very young, but it's nice that I'm getting to the age where I can actually have a long form discussion and people are going to actually listen, because like when you're like 23, 24, nobody really is going to pay attention or actually listen, because you're just a dumb kid or whatever. And I'm still a dumb kid because I'm 27, and that's what I tell myself. I'm a dumb kid, so it's okay to be immature. But it's like as I get a little bit older, it's nice I'm getting to the age where people aren't going to offhandedly dismiss my opinions or any discussion because of my young age. You know what I mean?
Well, what's cool about your style of nonfiction writing is that you don't have to be a professional philosopher. You don't have to necessarily be like amazingly perfectly correct about everything. People will read you in large part because of your own story, your own aesthetic, your style, your weird angles, and your taste. And so it's like that's a certain kind of literary, memoiristic kind of creative nonfiction type of genre that is a really cool spot to be in, because you don't necessarily have to spend the rest of your life trying to become like a real philosopher or something. You don't have to be like reading like Kant's Third Critique or something like that. That's not the game you're ever going to play, I don't think. Like, you just have interesting perspectives, and if you can just keep basically deepening your perspective and improving it and polishing it and just keep publishing it, but keeping it imbued with like your interesting stories and your very unique kind of personal angles. People will continue to read it and follow it and buy your books just because they want that Paul Towne angle on the world, because they find it edifying or inspiring or funny or whatever. And that's a really cool kind of nonfiction niche to be in, because you don't have to, because you were just referring to yourself about, like you're being young and dumb and stuff like that. But like, you don't really have to try to be super smart or super sophisticated. You just have to keep being yourself and keep polishing that and refining that and making that like an ever greater work of art. And that's like what people are gonna continue to read you for. And I really applaud you for that. It's not an easy thing to cultivate. It's not an easy thing to achieve. And you've already published a bunch of books and you're off to a great start. So we're a fan and we'd like to, support you however we can, man.
Awesome. This is awesome. This is a good amount of support already. Thank you very much.
Right on, Paul. Well, thanks for, finding the time to hang out with us today. I'm sure my audience will find this really interesting. I'll put links to your books in the show notes for the if you're listening to this on the podcast feed or if you're watching it on YouTube. We'll put links in the show notes so you can find out more about Paul's works. And like I said, when you look at them on Amazon, it's very mysterious and ambiguous. You're not going to necessarily know what you're getting, but I really have to stress that I was pleasantly surprised by what I found. So it's worth the $20 for sure.
And always remember, anything I say or do in the future, Justin Murphy 100% endorses, and he encourages me to say.
I don't know about that. I don't know about that, but I definitely liked the book, and I support your work, and I want to see you keep it up, and I hope my audience will order. Would you say, is this the best book of yours, like to start with? Would you say?
Yeah, I would say if you're interested in it's almost like a bathroom reader of sorts, where it's not very narrative driven. But if you're interested in like fiction or more classical writing, my latest thing, Rose.Paul.Towne, is I would say my best. I actually did go over and edit that before I published it, because I wanted to make it very traditionally accessible.
Nice. And soon, hopefully you'll be making enough money from your book so you can hire an editor and you won't even have to do that yourself.
Yeah, I can hire somebody to clean my room for me.
All right, Paul, thanks again for coming on, man. This was fun. It was really cool getting to know you and learn more about your story. And man, it's good to connect.
Yeah, this is awesome. Thank you for having me.
Hey, thank you so much for listening to the podcast. You made it all the way to the very end, so you must really like the show. In that case, I would be super grateful if you'd be so kind to leave a review on Apple Podcasts. All you have to do is go to otherlife.co/review. That's otherlife.co/review. And it'll send you an Apple Podcast. Just leave a review. You can be honest. Tell me what you really think. I'd really appreciate it, because it'll help other people find the show. And I'm really trying to grow out the podcast. So thanks for listening, and thank you for leaving a review. I really appreciate it.